Greetings everyone, Tim Anderson here, aka Renfail, and welcome to the Baldur's Gate 2 Enhanced Edition overview video, which I promised last week after I did the first edition, the Baldur's Gate 1 Enhanced Edition overview game. I just wrapped up that game yesterday. I played it out over 11 sessions, which is quite a bit shorter than the actual game could be. I skipped a lot of the enhanced content and I skipped a lot of the side quests. So if I had to estimate, I'd say I played about half of what was in totality available for Baldur's Gate 1. But the reason for that is because I was kind of in a hurry to get to this game, to get to Baldur's Gate 2, because this game is much larger, much broader in scope, and there's a lot more to be seen and to be done in this game. I still think to this day that Baldur's Gate 2 is the best single-player role-playing game that has ever been created, and I know that that's a huge claim to make. I've played pretty much every single game, every single role-play game that's come out since then, whether it's on PC or console. And I can look at games like Dragon Age Origins, I can look at games like Red Dead Redemption 2, The Witcher 3, any of the Mass Effect games. These are amazing games in their own right. Great games, and definitely in my top games of all time. But Baldur's Gate 2 still takes the cake for a variety of reasons. First, I want to talk about scope. So, just the base storyline has about 60 hours of gameplay to it. And when you start looking at all of the available side quests that you can participate in with Baldur's Gate 2, there is up to 300 hours of gameplay available in this game. I would I would put money on any game out there. People trying to find a game from the modern era or since Baldur's Gate 2 came out that has anything close to just 60 hours of gameplay in the base content. Like you're not going to find that pretty much in any game. The average game these days has 25 to 30 hours of content, and big games like God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, Witcher 3, etc., Last of Us 2, these games you really have to do every single side quest and explore every nook and cranny if you want to try to get 60 hours of gameplay out of these games. And that is a blanket statement. Obviously, there are games that are a little bit longer, but when you're talking about just the base storyline for a game, Baldur's Gate 2 has 60 hours of gameplay just with the primary storyline. Then you want to do all the side quests that are available in the game and explore every nook and cranny. Oh, we're going to give you another 200 plus hours of gameplay. So it's a pretty just amazing game just in terms of scope. And I think that alone is something that makes it well worth anyone's time. Obviously, the graphics are a little dated, but Beamdog has done a really good job with the Enhanced Edition at making things work on modern machines and giving everything a little bit of a facelift. I've already dug in and played a couple of sessions. I played a couple hours last night and a couple hours this morning, and was basically recording all the footage that I'm using in this video for the background. And I haven't even scratched the tip of the iceberg, but yet I've uncovered already, after like 4 hours of gameplay, I've already uncovered around 20 quests that don't even have anything to do with the primary storyline. So it's just scope. The sheer scope of this game is just out of this world. Now, compared to the first one, obviously, it's using the same engine. When you get the game going, you're going to be presented with the same types of options. Obviously, there are a few little differences, because in Baldur's Gate 2, you're starting out at a higher level, so you get a little bit more diversity in terms of creating your character. Now, you can choose, if you've got a saved game from the first game, if you're playing the Enhanced Edition, when you start the game, you actually have the option to pick your last saved game and just import that character over with all of their stats and everything else, which is really cool if you want to carry that character through. I chose to roll a mage for the playthrough that I'm playing in this game, and I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. But basically, from the get-go, you've got the same options presented. You can choose your gender, Then you get into your character portraits. They've got the same portraits from the first game as well as portraits from the second game, and they've got the portraits that Beamdog went ahead and put together. And then beyond that, you get into all of the other stuff like your race, your class, your alignment, so on and so forth. You can get down to the stats where you get to roll your stats again. And again, this is second edition, so it's Advanced Dungeons and Dragon rules. So for those of you who are familiar with fifth edition, this is a step back in time. But again, it really doesn't impact anything unless you're going to have the to hit roll showing, because then you'll actually be seeing what's going on behind the scenes. But otherwise, it's a game. You're meant to play it. The only thing that really changes between second edition and fifth edition is how some of the bonuses work and classes and combat. Obviously, the THACO system no longer exists, so on and so forth. But what I really want to get into is what happens after you go through your skill selection, your ability selection, excuse me, and you get into your skills. And more importantly, at least for my mage, we're going to get in here and look at the actual spells. Now, this is huge because you're starting off mid-level. So I believe you're 7th, 8th level when you start off in this game. And as a result, you get to pick a whole lot of spells and abilities before you start off your character. This also goes for like if you're a thief character, because you'll have the opportunity to go through and set all of your pickpocket, open locks, find traps and stuff, and you've got I think like 250-ish points to spend because you're like an 8th level character. So you've got a lot of room to play with. So but here with the mage in particular, you have a huge amount of spells to pick from, and you get to pick all the ones that you're going to start with as a character. And you get to pick first level, second level, third level, and fourth level. And then once you've chosen the ones that are in your spell book, you go in and you choose the ones that you've actually memorized for the start of the game. And then after that, you go into the same routine as the first game, where you pick the color of your character, the way they look when they don't have any armor on, and then the voice, and then you go from there. This time around, as opposed to going through the core rules, I wanted to play on the normal rules, and the reason is because the core rules are great, but they do slow down the gameplay a little bit. And because this is such a huge game, and I do want to try to get through it before the end of September for Baldur's Gate 3 Early Access, I wanted to just go ahead and play through on normal setting because it's just such a huge game. Slowing it down makes no sense to me, and it's still quite challenging on normal. You're going to get into the game. There's a pretty cool cutscene at the beginning. I remember being very surprised when this game came out because I recognized the voice of the actor, and I don't have his name up right off the top of my head. I'm going to pull it up real quick. But I had seen him in quite a few other roles. David Werner is his name. And I remember watching, when I played this game for the first time, I heard this guy's voice and I was like, where have I heard this guy's voice? Because he just had this voice that is kind of distinct. And when I started looking back into what he had done before, I'd seen him in Tron, Time Bandits, Star Trek The Next Generation, some of the Star Trek movies. He's done a ton of work in film and also in the stage, and he's just been in a ton of different stuff over the years. And so if you've ever seen or heard him, that voice is very distinct. And it was one of those things that when I heard it, I was like, this is a famous actor. And then of course you've got the staple guys from Baldur's Gate 1. A lot of the same voice actors returned for Minsk, Jahira, Imawin, so on and so forth. So the one thing I will say is that this game, there's way more dialogue. There's way more voice acting. There's way more everything. And this is actually something where I was discussing this on a stream with someone recently. They said that was one of the reasons why they were overwhelmed when they tried to play the Baldur's Gate games, because there's just so much dialogue. It just felt overwhelming. And I'll admit, like, just in the very intro, once you get past this first animation scene, you're just hit with a wall of dialogue, and you're going through and you're talking to everyone about what's going on, and you talk to Jahira in the cage, and you talk to Minsk in his cage, and just from the get-go, you're going through dozens of lines of dialogue, and if you go into the journal, you're getting more dialogue, and the descriptions for everything in this game are bigger, better, broader, have more scope. The weapons, there's so many more magic weapons in this game. You also have the romance options in this game, and you also have the ability to create these special weapons and items which can only be put together as you explore the game, because you find bits and pieces here throughout the game world, and eventually you'll be able to get enough to put together things like the equalizer sword, and so on and so forth. So basically there's just a ton of stuff going on in this game, way more than the first game. And I'll remember, because when this game came out, it came out on 4 CDs, which at the time 4 CDs was massive. You know, you're talking a 2 GB game or something, and for the time it was just huge. And since then, of course, it's nothing. I mean, most mobile games are bigger than Baldur's Gate 2 is or was, but that's because of the characteristics of the game at the time. You know, we weren't dealing with incredibly high definition graphics, and again, it's not fully voiced. It is partially voiced, but compared to the first game, again, this just has a lot more going on in every way. There's bigger places to explore. There's broader depth to everything. And if you are looking for something where you can sink your teeth into a world and really immerse yourself into a game and become a character, this is going to be the game for you. Now, obviously, because this is a role-playing game, it suffers from the same types of issues that other role-playing games have, which is that once you've gone through the first playthrough, the second playthrough is largely going to be the same. However, you can have completely different interactions with people and characters based on whether or not you're a good character, a neutral character, or an evil character, and also who you have in your party. There's a broader array of characters who you can adventure with in Baldur's Gate 2. Some of them are from the first game, but there's a lot of new characters, and there's a lot more nuance going on in terms of the relationships between the characters. So if you have good and evil in your party and so on and so forth, there's a lot of banter that goes on in between the characters as you are adventuring, and you don't have any control over that. It's just based on the characters and their alignments and what they choose to do, and it's a lot of fun. Some of the banter is quite amusing, but it's there as kind of like background filler content for you. And as you go through this game, you're going to realize that because you're starting off at a higher level, everything has a little more oomph to it. You're dealing with mobs and characters that can do more things just like you can. And so the fights are a little more challenging. Everything becomes a little more difficult in terms of needing to strategize and use spells. And this is one of the reasons why I think the wizard in particular shines in this game, because web combined with any sort of area effect spell is an incredible strategy for wiping out incredibly difficult encounters. And because the deeper you get into this game, the more mages you come up against, you'll find that having a mage in your party is extremely useful. But also clerics. If you read a lot of the hardcore gamers who love this game, they'll say that the best multi-class in the game is a fighter excuse me, a fighter cleric or a ranger cleric, because you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting some cool spells. You can do fighter mage, so on and so forth. But there's just such a breadth of spells between the mages and the priests that it's literally hundreds of different things that you can do, and you can combine things in all sorts of fun different ways. And it really does add another level of gameplay to this game. Now, similar to the first game, Baldur's Gate does suffer from being a dated game, like I said. And while the graphics have been updated, a lot of the quality of life features that people have come to expect in more modern games aren't there. You still have to manually quick save. If you forget to do a quick save, like I often do, you'll find yourself 15 minutes down the road wiping to an encounter and then having to go back and redo it all over again, because the game doesn't auto save for you as frequently as more modern games, where you can a lot of games these days you can go in and modify how quickly they save, how frequently they save. But be that as it may, it's still an amazing game. And I think if you're someone who's interested in role-playing games as a whole and games that are all about a world and immersing yourself in that world, then this is going to be something that you want to sink your teeth into. Now, I would not recommend starting this game unless you like reading and unless you have a lot of time on your hands, because this game is massive in scope, as I've talked about multiple times through this video. And, just to complete the base game, you're looking at 60 hours. But I don't know of anyone who's ever played this game for the first time who just did the base game. Like, I remember the first time I played this game, I spent a couple of months going through this thing, and I probably did, if I had to guess, it's been years ago now, but if I had to guess, I would say I probably did easily, 250 hours of content the first time, because I tried to do every single thing I came across. But a lot of the stuff that's optional is class related. So there's, if you have a ranger, if your main character is a ranger, there's a series of side quests that you can do, but only if you're a ranger. Same thing, if you're a thief, you can only do them if you're a thief. You can only do them if you're a paladin. You can only do them if you're, a mage, whatever. Those are optional quests, and you'll get those when you go through and do the second playthrough. And then there's all the quests that you'll get if you pick up various party members, because they'll have things that they want you to do too for them before they join your party. So, just the first time you go through it, I would say prepare yourself for at least a 100-hour journey, because you're probably going to get at least 100 hours of gameplay out of this game the very first time you play it, and it's not a bad thing. But it does require that you like to read and you take the time to actually put yourself into the character's shoes and roleplay a little bit, because alignment does mean something in this game, like it does in any Dungeons and Dragons campaign. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a very quick overview on Baldur's Gate 2 and why I love the game, why I think the game is worth playing, why I think you should play the game, especially if you're going to be looking forward to Baldur's Gate 3 like I am. It's a good kind of primer course to get yourself familiar with the world of Baldur's Gate and the world of Forgotten Realms, and prepare yourselves for the adventure that Larian Studios got coming down the pipeline, because as big as Divinity Original Sin 2 was, Baldur's Gate 3 is shaping up to be 4 or 5 times bigger than that game was, which I have a feeling that Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be a lot like Baldur's Gate 2 in terms of just the scope and blowing kind of the competition out of the water. I can't wait. So thanks for following along. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out all the links below, and I will see you in the next adventure series. And don't forget to follow along as I stream the various games that I cover through these videos. Until next time, cheers.